Hi! To fully appreciate this entanglement presentation, it is advisable to have a basic knowledge of subtle energies, auras, and psi lines. This may be obtained from my earlier presentations on my website and YouTube. Entanglement is usually associated with the quantum world when, say, two electrons emitted from the same atom remain in communication with each other even when separated by vast differences. This presentation shows how it is possible for two large physical bodies in the real world to communicate information to each other over considerable distances without any apparent intermediate medium. That is, solving the ERP paradox. This is because everyone has been looking in the wrong place. Since 2008, I have published several papers showing that there are at least 6 different methods for achieving macro entanglement. This presentation selects just one of these 6. The main reason is because it is the closest to classical quantum entanglement. It is the simplest to demonstrate in this presentation. There are 4 factors involved in creating macro entanglement. Let's take each one of these in turn, starting with commonality. One sheet of cheap A4 paper is the basis of this demonstration. This piece of paper, torn in half, is all the commonality required to generate two-body entanglement. All physical objects, or even geometric shapes, possess a 3-dimensional aura that is larger than their physical source. This is illustrated by the orange tint in this slide. For thousands of years, there have been reports of many people who are able to see or detect these auras noetically. I can easily detect and feel such energies, but I cannot see them. Having cut the previous sheet of paper in two, note that the auras are expanding as the two sheets separate. The auras further expand as the two halves separate. When they have expanded by about 30%, they then start interacting. The two sheets of paper are identified here by the letters A and B. Also shown is a consistent location and protocol for measuring the linear increase in the size of the 3-dimensional auras. After a critical separation distance, that may be up to about 1 meter, there is the automatic creation of subtle energy psi lines and their nodes, shown in green. These nodes are a different form of subtle energy that seem to keep the psi lines parallel and non-divergent. They also seem to mediate the entanglement and boost it along the way, so there is no diminution in the strength of information. There are many physical events that affect the dimensions of auras. Pressure is one such physical property. If we now place variable weights only on paper A, the pressure generated becomes entangled with the aura of paper B. The resulting entanglement causes both auras to increase in step, creating a specific mathematical relationship. An example is shown on the next slide. If you're still with us, you obviously want proof. This graph is a summary of several experiments over short and long separation distances. The horizontal axis represents the weights placed on sheet A. There is never a physical weight placed on B. The vertical axis is the size of the aura of the entangled sheets A and B. The experimental error is very low, being about plus or minus 3%. The range of weights used in these experiments was between 0 to nearly 5,000 grams. This produced a 7-fold increase in the auras of both sheets A and B. Please note that the curves for sheets A and B and the XL trend line are closely superimposed. The XL trend line gives a 4-dimensional equation with an unusually high correlation coefficient of almost 100%. As it is also apparent from a previous graph, the weight on sheet A is instantaneously communicated to sheet B, and their increasing auras remain synchronized. Since 2009, I have published several papers based on transits of most of the planets in our solar system. The transits created a 3-body subtle energy alignment beam, which has similar properties to psi lines. These beams peak exactly at the time taken by light from the planet to reach the observer on Earth. This is well before the published time of the transit. Hence, this technique for entanglement using subtle energy psi lines and the 3 bodies in alignment demonstrates instantaneous communication. It is important to emphasize the mind-blowing, unexpected results from the experiments involving Neptune and most of the planets. Not only do they prove that subtle energy communication is not only faster than light, but can be instant. If my average mind can communicate to the edge of our solar system, with appropriate training, so may yours. In the same way, it takes many years to play, say, a musical instrument proficiently, it is the same with subtle energies. It took me about 20 years of experimentation to noetically measure to an accuracy better than 2 millimeters. Once again, the Neptune experiments are sound scientific evidence that consciousness and the mind are part of the structure of the universe. As always in scientific research, the findings often invite more questions than answers. For example, some consequential topics for further research include: does quantum entanglement have a similar psi line action at a distance as macro entanglement? And what is the nature of psi lines? What is the role of nodes? How do 3 independent, unconnected bodies know when they are in alignment and hence produce an alignment beam? These results strongly suggest that, once again, the mind, consciousness, and psi lines are intimately connected to the structure of the universe. So more research is needed into how and why the mind achieves this. I hope this presentation motivates people to independently confirm my solution to the ERP paradox and develop my findings. A postdoc qualified in subtle energies may wish to develop further my overarching missing parts of quantum theory. The eventual goal is understanding how the brain actually achieves all the unbelievable and impossible phenomena discussed in this presentation. My findings indicate a solution to the 1935 ERP paradox, caused by erroneously believing the impossibility of instantaneous communication of information and action over vast distances. My previously described Neptune experiment is one of many that help solve the ERP paradox, as everybody has been looking in the wrong place. My 2008 solution explains 6 versions of macro and non-quantum entanglement. A feature of all of these is that psi lines are involved. If the two bodies come from the same source, then the communicating psi line is automatically generated by the act of separation. If not, then the two dissimilar objects that require entanglement can be separately placed on an existing psi line. My solution to the EPR paradox suggests the inclusion of a new overarching theory that extends current quantum physics. This involves subtle energies, psi lines, auras, the mind, consciousness, and an enhanced view of the geometry of space-time. Thank you for listening to the many new and counterintuitive concepts. Please visit my website jeffreykeen.co.uk, which will freely provide much more information. It will also allow you to download or have sight of my 58 papers which have been published over the years, as well as details of my 2 books. There follows a selection of supportive charts, tables, universal constants, and graphs with a brief commentary. Whilst the 2 sheets of paper were being separated, the blue line shows the process when an entanglement psi line was being created. This is the data for the previous slide 10 graph, showing the entanglement of pressure. This is only one of many examples demonstrating that subtle energies are strongly connected to universal constants. In this case, to 0.131% accuracy. This is another example demonstrating that subtle energies are strongly connected to universal constants. In this case, to psi with a 0.02% accuracy. This graph illustrates the connection between psi line length and its nodes. This graph shows the connection between node separation distances and psi line length. This graph is one of several disruptor experiments. The data relates to an alignment of Neptune, Earth, and the Moon. This is an example of a planetary alignment beam, which is the same as psi lines, and demonstrates two vital phenomena. Firstly, not only is it possible to go faster than light, but the instantaneous communication of information. And secondly, the mind can reach the edges of the solar system. The accuracy is plus or minus 3%.